Please start, ma'am.
You're live?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay. All right. So very good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for joining. So as announced, today's session is very special because we have so of course. Oops. So I think I have. Yes. Awesome. All right. So very good evening, everybody. Thank you so much. Today's session do you have YouTube on? Maybe special.
Sorry, what's happening?
Sorry, yeah, I could hear feedback from YouTube.
Yeah, YouTube, I think there's something.
My YouTube is muted, so I don't think it's from my end.
My browser is closed. Now I think it's fine. So yeah. All right.
Sorry, what's happening?
No, that's okay. You sorry, yeah, I could hear feedback.
Okay. Do you still hear feedback? Yeah, okay. Hey everyone, sorry, I think we have some slight audio issues, but I think it should be resolved in a minute or so. Welcome to the live session, and as announced, we have Uds Journey here with us, apart from the usual Neeldhara and me. Welcome, Udit. Thanks for joining a lot. A brief introduction. Uds Journey has just completed his 12th standard, and he has represented the country at the IOI for the last 2 years, where he got a silver medal both the times, and now he's on his way to NUS. Udit, are you in Singapore now, or are you still in India?
I'm still in India because of the travel ban.
So when do you plan to go?
Whenever they unban.
Oh, so okay. So you'll be starting your semester online.
Yeah, it's going on since 2 weeks.
Okay, cool, great. Great. So to give a brief introduction about the IOI. IOI is International Olympiad in Informatics. It's a contest where from every country 4 school students. It need not be high school; it can be middle school as well. But it's only school students who participate in it. It's held in different countries every year, but of course this year it has been online. It's a two-day contest where each day you have 3 problems and you get 5 hours to solve. So it's typically pretty hard problems. There's maybe one slightly easy problem. It's a pretty prestigious pretty prestigious contest, and as you can expect, being one of the top 4 of the country is definitely an amazing feeling and an amazing achievement. And having done it twice is even more impressive. And bagging a silver medal, which is in the top 1/4 of the people at IOI, right? Was it? Yeah.
Yes,
yeah. So top 20% of all the participants at IOI, they get a silver or a gold, and that's also an amazing achievement. And to get to IOI, you have various stages nationally. So we have multiple exams called Zonal Computing Olympiad, Zonal Informatics Olympiad. Then from these you qualify to another level called IOHI, and from there is another thing called IOHTC. And then you finally go to IOI. Maybe Udit can help us through those stages as well. But before then, if anyone has any questions regarding this, anything which you want to ask Udit, please post in the comments, and we'll take it from there. Hey Neil, are you back? Is your audio fine?
Yeah, it is. I think I didn't realize I had Discord open in the background.
Okay.
So yeah, I was getting a little bit of an echo, which I think others were also hearing. But we're all good now, and I think it's all yours, Udit. Thanks so much.
I'm just looking at the YouTube chat. Okay. There's no concrete question right now. So Udit, maybe you can just take us through your journey. Like, when did you start competitive programming? Has your goal always been IOI, or was it more of a byproduct of something else? Why did you start doing this?
So I started a CP in class 8. There was a intro to competitive programming workshop in IIIT Delhi. So I got introduced in that. And then I basically just solved problems on CodeChef. Like, my aim was not like completely IOI, but it was like I did want to do IOI, but I didn't do CP just because of that. And so yeah, any specific questions? Like, what part of the journey?
Like in general, so maybe start off with preparation. Like, where did you prepare from? Some gyan on that.
Okay, so I solved problems basically from places like CodeChef, CodeForces, and AdCoder, or other Olympiad in informatics from different countries. So like I solved IOI questions, Baltic, Olympiad, Asian Pacific, all kinds of these kinds of questions. So this was basically my preparation.
Okay. Like, how did you manage school and informatics Olympiad? What about other other exams? Did you give JEE, for example?
Yeah, so managing school was quite tough. So till 10th, I mean, I didn't perform well in school in class 8th and like only average in 9th. So I didn't completely manage them very well. And during the periods that I did manage school well, I didn't do competitive programming much. So studying before the 10th boards, I studied for school completely for a month or two. So I didn't do any competitive programming. And also during my JE period, I CP took the backhand. So
okay, good. Misra, do you have anything to ask?
So yeah, I think you pretty much covered. I think the main questions are balancing school and JEE kind of exam prep, which is very common at that stage. And I think for those of you who are joining us who are past school, I think the same question carries over about balancing college or professional commitments with CP, either as a hobby or a more serious pursuit. I think there's a question in the chat about like how you did mathematics. So was there any special attention to things that were beyond like the CS? I think the algo data structures is probably a core part of your training. Did you do anything special for math and ad hoc puzzles?
For in maths regarding CP, I mean, in general, any topic in CP, I basically learned from the editorials. So if I couldn't solve a problem, I would look at the editorial, and if it required some technique, I would just Google like this technique. Multiple things would come up, and I'll see them. I think a lot of maths I also learned during ZIO prep. So ZIO is the first stage of ZIO, or ZCU is the first stage of Informatics Olympiad in India, and ZIO is basically just discrete maths. So I learned a lot of combinatorics, graphs, all that during me preparing for ZIO. And beyond CP, I also did Maths Olympiad. So for that, I had a lot of help from my JEE coaching. So they basically guided me through Maths Olympiad prep.
Yeah, that's okay. That's great. That's very helpful. There's a question about how long it might get to get proficient in competitive programming, and if it's too late to start. So I'm not sure if you had to ever worry about whether it was too late or too early. Did those considerations ever come up?
Not really. Like, there are many people who start even after college, and there are many people who start like in primary or middle school as well. So like in China, I think it's common to start in 4th, 5th grade. They have even special Olympiads for classes 5th and below, and some things like that.
Okay, that's pretty incredible. But so you're saying that there isn't, I I mean, it's always a good time to start in general if you wanted to. I guess your goalposts would have to be adjusted accordingly. Okay. Yeah. Great. And in terms of the length of time, again, I think, do you have any comments on, like, did you feel at any point that, did it occur to you that maybe something's taking longer than you were prepared for it to take? And did you ever have to reconsider your life choices, so to speak, in terms of?
Lots of times.
Okay.
So I've quit like CP many times on and off. So for example, I was really sad after my both the times after I came 5th in the team selection test. So like only 4 people get selected and I came 5th twice. So after both of them, I kind of rage quit CP for a while and then moved back in. And also during my JE prep, in the middle of 11th, I decided that I'm kind of quitting CP till JE gets over. But after COVID hit, my interest in CP regained. So.
Okay, that's a silver lining for the whole COVID thing that we have been going through, I guess.
Do you think the break actually helped you?
I don't think so. Yeah, some people say you should take breaks, but I don't think breaks help me. So, in fact, if I don't do like any practice, even if I just do contest, my performance drastically improves.
Right. So in general, unless there are other circumstances, you would advise people to keep at it and keep practicing, even if they're not in the mode or whatever. It's like, okay.
Yeah. Right. If you're not liking it, then you should not do it, but otherwise it's fine.
Right. So I think Sarang has a question here that I think is, it's a great question and comes up a lot, I think. Do you think learning algorithms is more important or solving problems more important? So how do you balance learning new concepts and just practicing?
Practicing is definitely more important. Lots of people just focus on learning like very advanced algorithms and all, but don't solve easy problems. So, if you're just, I'm only saying this from a comparative programming perspective. I think you should more focus on problems and reach, because say you are learning some advanced algorithm and that won't even be useful till you solve some level of some high level of problems. So for example, you learned FFT at the beginning and it won't there would be no impact till you are able to solve like very hard problems. Like before that, no FFT problem will come. So but if you're not doing this from a comparative programming perspective, say you're just learning algorithms for say doing research or something, then it's totally fine, I think.
Right. So what you're saying is that if somebody invests a lot of time in learning a very hard concept initially, there's the time that is spent and also maybe the psychological aspect of wrestling with the concept and coming to terms with it. They don't see any immediate benefits for a while because the concept doesn't even come up at the level at which they're competing. So maybe that wasn't the best use of their time at that stage. So it's
yes.
And you think it's okay to discover concepts as you're practicing. So you practice a problem, you couldn't do it, you upsolve it, you see that you need a new technique which you've never heard of.
Yeah.
And then you go and learn that.
That's how most people learn the concepts in CP. So you don't solve a problem, you see the solution that requires some topic, you just search it.
Yeah, that's good to know, because I think the traditional way that we learn in classrooms is that there's a textbook and you learn all the concepts first and then you do the questions.
Yeah.
And this is like a reversal of what we grew up with as the natural order. So it's good to validate that that's okay. That's okay.
Yeah, I think this is a very nice strategy. So even in JE, my teachers used to follow this strategy more often than the other way around. So this is much better.
Right, that makes sense. And okay, there is a question by Arindam from Arindam. I wanted to ask how you approach a very complex problem such as the IOI problems. So you want to break up your strategy? How do you start thinking once you've read a problem? How do you go about it?
It's just, I mean, random ideas start coming to you if you have solved a bunch of problems. So you try to play with those ideas, just mix them randomly and see what new can you come up with, what observations you see, and all that.
Somehow all the practice you do kind
also, one more strategy is, for example, in specific to IOI, you can try to solve for subtasks. That's really helpful. So you solve for, say, n is, you have, the main problem is n is 1e5, but a subtask gives you n is like limited to 1e3. So you try to solve, say, come up with an n square solution and then try to improve. So you can think along those directions.
Right. So solve an easier subcase first. Yeah. So there's a kind of super specific question. Should I practice 1,000 rated problems to get to GM? I assume that's Grandmaster on core forces. Arjun?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm, to be honest, not up to speed on how the ratings map to these designations.
More 1,000 rated.
Yeah, yeah, that's also, I'm not sure if there's like 1,000 problems or 1,000.
Yeah, exactly. That's not very clear. I mean, if your aim is to get to GM, I'm sure definitely starting from 1,000 rated problems definitely makes sense, but you should definitely aim for harder problems as well. But if you're looking for quantity, then maybe Udit can shed some light. Udit, what do you think is the approximate number of problems you've solved?
I think I've solved about more than 1,000 on CF. But yeah, quality matters more than quantity. So there are many people stuck at even newbie level, and they have solved like more than 1,000 problems, and many advanced people who have just solved, say, 500 problems, like many LGMs and all too. So definitely quality matters more.
Yeah. So when you mean quality, can you explain a bit more on what exactly you mean?
Like, I mean difficulty, basically.
So how do you choose which, like, say, not during a contest, while up solving or even just normal practicing? How do you select which problems to?
You should select a problem which you know that has not 100% chance of you solving, and also not a 0% chance. So somewhere in between. So say maybe you have a 30% chance of solving it. You can try that. So I mean, some people also recommend, like, if your rating is X, you should try for X plus 300, something like that.
Yeah. Okay. So do you solve it topic wise, or do you just go random?
Yeah, random, because topic wise gives you some part of the hint already for the solution, because it gives you the topic. So if you are like feeling very very like not confident at all on a topic, so then you should maybe solve topic wise, but otherwise I think just solving random problems is better.
Mm-hmm. And while practicing, do you prefer practicing individual problems, or do you prefer doing virtual contests?
I prefer individual problems. That gives you more flexibility.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Following up on that, sorry, what kind of would you? I assume that you said you were practicing on core forces, so some of those must probably be in active contests. So what has your ratio been, the number of problems you solve in contests versus offline?
I'm not sure. I'll have to check. So,
right.
But I think I've solved more contest problems. No, I mean, not more, about, I think maybe 400 contest problems, 600 practice, something like that. Not sure.
Okay, so roughly even, or yeah, just a little more practice than contests. So I suppose that does mean that, I mean, another question that we get a lot, I don't know if we have it today, but when you practice by actually participating in contests, then it also affects your rating. So is that something that you ever worried about, especially maybe when you were starting out or even a little bit later? Would you hold back from participating in a contest because you felt like you were not prepared and it might affect your rating on that day?
No, yeah. In fact, it's been the somewhat opposite. So when I've not practiced for a long time, I know that my rating is definitely going to drop, but like I participate anyways. So some people say like if I'm GM right now and like I haven't practiced from a long time, I kind of know that I'm going to drop my title, so I should not. But contests are like pretty fun to give, so why not give them?
Right. Okay. Yeah, that's good to know for sure. All right. So I think I'll try to pick up the last question from the chat. I know a lot of people tend to black box these topics, but do you actually understand things like FFT entity, or do you template them and hope for the best? Okay.
FFT entity, I learned just a few weeks ago only. So mostly I do try to understand like at least once, and then like after that, I just copy paste the template. But I think some things I have forgotten, I think, like the exact details.
Was it for the
But-
ICPC season?
What?
Was it for the ICPC season? You were learning FFT and TT?
Yeah, during the ICPC season only.
So, sorry, go on. You were saying something.
So I guess, yeah, so Udit, did you want to add anything more to that, or would you be okay moving on to the next one?
Yeah, so it's sort of important to understand at least once, because there can be modifications. I mean, some algorithms you need to know very well, but FFT, I think FFT you can even ignore, like not knowing. Like I haven't ever found like if you don't know FFT, you can't solve a FFT question, something like that.
Right. And yeah, so I guess it's certainly doable to treat it like a black box. And I guess for some algorithms, your point is that it's good to know them in case you need to tweak the internals a little bit sometimes. But for FFT specifically, you can probably get away with not knowing it, at least to begin with. All right, so as a question previously from Sarang, would you suggest practicing for IOI by doing past IOI problems, or by practicing lots of code courses and CodeShell?
So depends on how much time you have. So you should, if you're preparing for IOI and like you are at the level where you think you'll be able to make the team, you should definitely solve all the IOI problems, but you should not just solve them for the sake of solving them. For like you should try to save them, because there are very few problems of very IOI level quality. So it's better to save, like do the like tough IOI questions on the last or second last IOI attempt than just solve in the beginning, because I mean they'll be wasted sort of, because if you can't solve them and you're just seeing the solution, they're sort of wasted.
Right, I think that makes sense. It's just a quick, I guess, an announcement sort of a thing. I think there's some requests for Arjun to talk about the weekly programming assignments. And Arjun, perhaps we can push that to the end, because while Udit is here, I think.
Exactly. Yeah, we'll definitely cover the week 3 assignments, but we'll do it towards the end where Udit doesn't get bored.
And I think I can't find the exact question anymore, but I think there was a question about recommendations for courses or references. So, so if you want to shed some light on like what kinds of, apart from the editorials, were there any texts or things like that you follow?
I can't hear you. Can you repeat?
Yeah, sure. So I think there was a question about courses, recommended courses. So apart from the editorials, did you have any textbooks or any specific courses that you found to be helpful?
So I printed some CP books, because while in school, you obviously can't like take a mobile or laptop to school. So I printed out some CP books, but I don't think they're that useful. So I find Codeforce's blogs or online YouTube videos to be more helpful than a particular book or a course.
Right, that makes sense. And there's a question that's, I guess, a kind of a softer question. I guess based on your experience, do you feel that the education system in India puts down people who have interest in computer science in high school, I suppose, as opposed to maybe other subjects? So what was your experience personally, and what's your take on this in general?
So I did have trouble getting into top universities in India. So the best I was getting at the moment, like when I was applying, so 1 year back, the best I could get was a 5-year program in IIIT Hyderabad. I mean, they now reduced it to 4-year for IOI people, but earlier it was 5-year. And apart from that, I got in at IIIT Delhi. That was also based on JEE plus IOI. So they just give bonus marks, not complete admission. And IIT Bombay also offers admission for Maths Olympiad campus. So you can't get into any IITs or anything based on just CS. So there is a slight disadvantage.
Right. I do hope that that scene is changing. As you said, I think IIIT Delhi has sort of sown the seeds for recognizing performances in the Olympiads. And I really do hope that more institutions will start doing that even without relying on JEE scores as a baseline. So fingers crossed. But in terms of I suppose you did already mention that it was tough to manage your work at school already, even taking away JEE prep. Was there any sort of a special provision for people who were serious about pursuing the informatics Olympiad in terms of flexibility with classwork or things like that? Or it was just like... No.
I don't think anyone at my school knew about any Olympiads.
Wow, okay. All right. That's
I mean, there were 1 or 2 of my friends that knew, but apart from them.
Right. Okay. Cool. That's interesting. All right. So I am not sure that I see.
So maybe contrasting, how has your experience been applying to institutes outside India?
So NUS. So I applied to NUS, and they kind of just, I mean, they asked for several things, but I mean, they gave admissions to all IOI medalists basically. So it's not a 100% guarantee, but I don't know anyone who got rejected by after being an IOI medalist. So that's very contrasting compared to India. And other colleges like US colleges see mix of everything. So they also take into account stuff like school marks and SAT and LORs, essays, all that. So they're kind of mixed.
Cool. So apart from computer programming, do you also do other kinds of developmental programming, something of that sort?
No.
Okay. And what do you plan to pursue in undergrad? I mean, do you have any specific interests right now, or are you just open to?
I'm doing CS plus maths only at the moment.
Okay.
Do you have a long-term sort of a career goal in terms of broad industry versus research versus anything that you've narrowed down, or it's too early?
I'm interested more in research right now, but I'll explore that more in university.
Sure, that makes sense. Excuse me. Do you think awareness for Olympiads is increasing in India? I mean, even during your years at school, did you see anything in terms of an evolution? I think you've already addressed this to some extent, but do you have any additional remarks?
I do think awareness is definitely increasing. So, I mean, comparing schools is different because I was regularly in different schools than in JEE coaching, and so. But overall, I do feel that generally more students are now taking parts. If you compare the statistics of different years, is definitely increasing.
Right, right. That's definitely good to know. So
How was your experience at IOI this year as compared to the physical experience last year?
No, I've never been to a physical IOI.
Okay. Right, my bad. Okay, that's sad. Okay.
it was still a out of house experience at least, right? I mean, you had to go to a center or something.
No. So last year I went to a nearby school. I was the only one, since they have centers for different cities. So they arranged a center for every distinct city a participant is in. And this year I just gave it at the college my dad is at. So they arranged a center there.
Okay, nice. I guess ICPC is also, the regionals were also virtual, right, Arjun, this time?
Yes.
Yeah. Of which he's so for 2 regionals you were the problem setter.
No, I was only the problem setter for the original. I mean, not the online round for Amrita, and I tested the rest of the. I mean, I tested all the 3 contests as well.
Okay.
Nice.
Apart from Kanpur.
And how did you like the experience of setting problems for ICPC?
Yeah, it was pretty good. So like Kevin is very cool dude, and he like I learned a lot as well, like new techniques and all that.
Nice.
So it was basically just the normal competitive programming experience, just solving problems and all that.
Do you already have a team in mind for NUS?
No, so I did make a team, like me, Shashwat, and Radarshi, the 3 Indians. We made a team, but so this year, what's happening is that in November, the ICPC 2021 will be in November, and we need to register by October, and it requires us to be on site in Singapore. So we're because me and Shashwat couldn't definitely say that we can manage by that time, so our team had to break up because it wouldn't be fair to Rajesh otherwise.
Okay. Yeah, that's sad to hear. So have you started making any changes in your preparation or changes in your practice now that I'm guessing your focus is going to change from IOI to ICPC?
Not right now, but I might change. Like I'll probably do more ICPC past year problems and more different kinds of judges maybe.
So what would your advice be for people starting out with ZAO/ZCO? Someone who's not qualified ZAO or ZCO till now. Any tips or which of those 2 to focus on? How would you go about preparing? Say you just know a programming language.
What?
Say you only know a programming language. Okay. You don't have.
ZCO is definitely easier to qualify. So ZCO just need to be able to write. I think the last time ZCO was held, it was just get a positive score. So you just need to know how to brute some stuff or just get any positive score. So just programming skills are enough for ZCO, but if you're more from a maths Olympiad background, then ZIO might be easier.
Okay, makes sense.
And both are good skills for the future stages. So the maths and the problem solving skills in ZIO are also definitely helpful for the IOI and further stages.
Sure. Okay.
Just going back to your earlier question about change of preparation, what are the major differences between IOI and ICPC in terms of topics or syllabus or whatever?
So IOI, the syllabus is very restrictive. So problems are more ad hoc based and requires lots of observations. And ICPC is more that you need to know lots of topics and know how to use your templates properly and just different kinds of problems, like not very, very different, but a little different. So, for example, I think for at least for the Southeast Asian ICPC regionals, I've been told that I should probably do more of CATTIS, that's an online judge, KATTIS, as compared to CF. So there are little changes.
Someone has asked a question. I think maybe you can just talk about the initiative you have where you train students, like the group that you have.
Yeah, so me, Soumya Ditta, and some other people came. I was not involved last year, so Soumya Ditta and some of his friends came up with an initiative to train a lot of new Indian IOA aspirants for Indian computing Olympiad. So they did this last year, and I think about 15 or something students even qualified for the camp. And they continue to do this year, and this year I'm also involved. So I trained a lot. So they have basically 3 batches: beginner, intermediate, and senior, junior, intermediate, and senior. So I'm basically managing the senior batch. I did it like full time in June, but now that July. And now that my college is starting, so I'm getting a lot less time to focus on it.
Okay. How many students in total are there? How do you register for it?
So you need to fill. There are about 90 students right now. You need to fill up. There's a form you need to fill up. Different details like how much programming have you done, what's your end goal, and all that. Your current level. Stuff like that. So basically, currently we have just taken any Indian IOA aspirant and not taking any college people because we don't have enough space, but we might consider other people as well later. Yeah, so you can just search on Code Forces or Code Chef. We have posted announcements there, and there's the link there. So.
Yeah, maybe you can just say what to search for. That might make it easier for people.
The name of the mentoring program is UFDS mentoring. Just search for that.
UFDS. Yeah, great. Neeldhara?
Yes.
Yeah, I was just going to say we'll post a link, but I just remembered that we cannot post links on YouTube. So search is what you have to do. Right. So I'm just trying to see if we missed any questions that were meant for it.
Ma'am, you want to post any link on the YouTube?
Oh, right. We could request you to post a link. Maybe.
Yes, ma'am. I can post. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, Arjun, if you have the link handy, then maybe.
Yeah, I'll send it.
Yeah. You can put it in the chat. I will take it.
Yeah, can you just post this link, please, on YouTube? Udit, that's the correct link, right?
I'll check. Yes, it's the correct link.
Okay.
So in the meantime, I'll just pull up a question that from before. Harshal was asking if competitive programming is necessary. So do you have a take on this? Like, how do you think competitive programming has helped you in general?
I mean, it's definitely not necessary. What do you even mean by necessary for what? So it has definitely helped me. So I mean, my problem solving skills have improved a lot. I've made a lot of friends in the process. Like the competitive programming community is really nice, and it's also gotten me admission in college, so, in a way.
Yeah, I think just a bit of a heads up that probably not everybody who gets started on this journey will get as far as you did, but I think they might want to do it if it's fun for them, and it's not probably an essential thing, but they would know if they really want to do it, I suppose, right?
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, I think we have some other questions that are mostly related to ongoings in the course, so we will take those separately. Arjun, do you spot any questions that I might have missed?
No, I think that's about it. Yeah. So we can start with the assignment once.
So Arjun, do you have any other points of conversation with it, or should we like?
I think that's about it. So thanks a lot to that.
Okay,
It's
no
been
problem.
great having you. I'm sure people learned a lot.
Yeah. Okay. Bye.
Neeldhara, do you have something else?
No, I think there was this question that just came up in the chat, and I think partially addressed it. Has your experience in problem solving improved your quick thinking and decision making abilities in your life scenarios?
I don't think so.
It hasn't helped you in Among Us? Come on,
Wait,
it
how?
must have. Huh? It hasn't helped you in Among Us?
How?
I don't know, like figuring out who some should have helped you at some point. No. Analytical thinking and figuring out who. I don't know. I'm
But
just kidding.
perhaps
Good.
On that very motivating note, this was absolutely wonderful, Udit. Thank you so much for joining us. Yeah, hopefully we'll see you around, and really appreciate your time here. We don't want to bore you as we transition into like routine matters of the course, but yeah, hopefully we'll see you again soon. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thanks a lot for that. See you. Even if it directly doesn't help, just the fact that it, in some sense, sharpens your analytical thinking, I think is good for various aspects of general life as well. Just general thinking, how you think about various things, which is, in fact, my motivation for wanting to spread CP culture. It's not about getting to GM level, but at least getting to like a decent amount of CP helps. I strongly believe it definitely helps you think about the way you think, and I think that's a very what's the word for it? Transferable skill.
Yeah, totally. That makes sense. And right, so let's. Okay, I'm trying to. Malesh, I think a good place to talk about questions other than the lectures from SPOJ or wherever else. I think that discussion is very welcome. I think, in fact, for example, for week 3, I think there's a discussion on a problem that's not from the lectures or from the assignments, and it's ongoing on Discord. So I think that would be a good place to post it. And normally we'd be also happy to take it up on the live stream, but I think in the time that we have left, I think we'd rather probably address the assignment questions first. So Arjun, do you want to shed some light on or give some hints on the week 3?
Sure. Yeah. So it's going to be a bit hard to give somewhat decent hints which don't spoil the entire problem because it's a greedy week, but I'll try to do my best. So let's start with week 3 problem assignment 1. So this is a problem in which you're given a binary string. It has zeros and ones, and your objective is to do some operations, and at the end of which you want to get more number of ones than zeros in the string. That is, initially, if the string is of length 5, initially if you have 1, 1, and 4 zeros, you want to get it to something like 3 ones and 2 zeros, or 4 ones and 1 zero, or 5 ones. Like the number of ones should be greater than the number of zeros. It might happen that the given string itself has more number of ones than zeros, in which case you don't need to do anything, and then you're already good to go. But suppose not, then what are you allowed to do? So in a single operation, you can pick any one in the string which hasn't been picked so far. That is, in any of the previous operations, you should not have picked this one. And so every one you can pick at most once, and you look at its two neighbors, at most two neighbors. Maybe it has only one neighbor. If it's an endpoint, it has only one neighbor. But if it's an internal element, it has two neighbors. And if any of them are zero, you can pick, suppose there's a one, and suppose both of its neighbors are zero. Then you can pick any one of these zero, any one. You can't pick both the zeros. You can pick any one of these zeros, and you can convert it into a two. Okay. But if there is a one and decided it's one and there's only one zero, then you can take the zero and convert it into a two. If both of its neighbors are ones, then you can't do anything. Similarly, if its neighbor is a two and a zero, something else has converted into two, then you can't do anything. The only thing you can do is you can take a neighbor who is a zero and convert that zero into a two, right? And you can do it to at most one neighbor, and you can pick each one at most once. Slightly non-trivial question itself. So the first thing is, of course, you should don't get intimidated with the problem. Spend some time looking at the sample should help quite a bit. So this is what an operation is, and the question is there any way in which you can do these operations such that at the end you end up with more ones than zeros in the binary string, right? So let me just check chat if there are any specific questions. Okay, there are no specific questions. So so this is the problem. I hope the problem makes sense. And the way to approach this, the obvious thing is that because it's a greedy week, it's a greedy algo, and I would just say just start out from left to right. So you have a string. It shouldn't matter which end you start from, but greedy mostly involves going in some sequential order, right? That's one of the first natural approaches you try. So start from the leftmost element. If the leftmost element is a zero, then there is nothing I can do with it, right? Because I can only apply the operation when I get to a one, and then I look at its neighbors. So if it's a zero, I don't do anything. If it's a two, I don't do anything, right? If it's a one, then what can I do? I look at its neighbor. It has only one neighbor. If that neighbor is a one, I can't do anything, right? But if it's a zero, now I have a choice of whether to convert that zero into a two or not doing anything to it, right? And this is where a greedy decision comes into picture. Think about what you can do. Think about this particular scenario. If I have a one at the very beginning and a zero after it, is it always good to convert that zero into a two, or will converting it mess up something later in the future, right? So this is a typical question you should always ask. So try to answer this question. And in more general, suppose you've done something for the first I elements, and you're at the I+1th element, and the I+1th element is a zero or a two, then you don't do anything, you just go on. But if it's a one, then you look at its two neighbors. And if both the neighbors, if neither of the neighbors are zeros, there's nothing for you to do, so you continue. If exactly one of their neighbors is a zero, then it becomes a slightly easier version. So think of what you can do in that sense. This should be fairly simple what to do. But the non-trivial part comes when both of its neighbors are zeros. That is, I have a one and I have a zero to its left and a zero to its right. But because as the question says, you can pick at most one neighbor and convert the zero into a two. So now you need to ask yourself, that's a definite answer. So one choice is what is called safe, and one choice can end up with a suboptimal solution. Okay, so think of this. I mean, I think a lot of you will probably get an intuition for this once you spend some time with the problem, even if you don't get it immediately. But if the intuition is slightly tricky, then I would suggest just take some example by hand. Get an example where there's a one with two zeros at both its neighbors as zeros, and try and see which option makes sense. Right? So just try it out by hand. It should not be too hard to figure out that one of the decisions is going to end up creating some suboptimal answers as you go down the future. Okay? So that this is basically the crux of the problem. This is the question you need to answer, and it's not a very hard thing to answer. So you don't overthink it. It's a fairly simple solution to it, even though I've gone on for like many minutes. It's a fairly simple solution, but do think about it a bit. Okay, I don't see any questions, so let's move on to problem 2. So in problem 2, there are n movies numbered from 1 to n. Each movie has 2 parameters, DI and LI. DI, which is the director of that movie, and LI is the length of the movie. And you're allowed to permute these n movies in any order and then watch it. You're going to watch each of these n movies exactly once, but the order in which you watch it is left up to you. And the enjoyment you get when you watch a particular movie. Say, I've watched 3 movies, now I'm watching the 4th movie. The 4th movie is going to be movie I at the enjoyment L10 into the number of distinct directors I've seen till now. That is, I've already seen 4 movies, and now I'm looking at the 5th movie. So take these 5 movies together as a set and look at all their directors, and what are the number of distinct directors amongst these 5 movies. Like maybe the 1st movie and the 4th movie were both directed by I don't know, Steven Spielberg. The 2nd and 5th were by the same person, and the 3rd was different. So there have been 3 distinct directors till now. So the enjoyment I'll get out of watching this 5th movie is going to be 3 into L10, right? So that's the enjoyment you derive for every particular movie, and the total enjoyment is just a sum of enjoyments of all the n movies that you watch. And of course, the aim is to maximize the amount of enjoyment you get. And you can see that the first thing you should try out is, does enjoyment actually change depending on the order? And this is a question you can easily answer. Just take some 3 movies, and you can see that if you permute the 3 movies, you will get different enjoyments. Or rather, there are examples where the enjoyment will be independent of the ordering, and there will be examples where the enjoyment is dependent on the order. So I think this is a good first question to ask yourself. Come up with a test case where no matter what ordering of the movies is, the total enjoyment is always the same. Okay, come up with such an example. And then come up with another example where depending on the ordering, the total enjoyment changes. Okay, so you can just have 2 movies or 3 movies. This is 3 movies. I think this is probably a sweet spot. So try to come up with LI and DI for 3 movies, such that the total enjoyment is dependent and independent of the ordering of the movies that you watch. And I think that itself should give you a pretty good. This exercise should hopefully give you a intuition on what direction to go into. So maybe I'll just give one other hint, which is so think of it slightly mathematically. So it is LI into number of distinct directors, and it's summation of over all of these. So no matter how you permute, no matter how you permute the LIs, that is the movies, you will always have n terms that you add up. And in each of these terms, there will be L1, L2, L3, but they'll be different. They'll be permuted. There'll be one term which has L1 into something. There'll be another term which has L2 into something, another term which has L3 into something, right? And then you add them. So addition doesn't care about the ordering, right? So there's always one term with L1. There's always exactly one term with L1. There's always exactly one term with L2, and so on and so forth. So the term which matters the most is the next term, which is the number of distinct elements, distinct directors you've seen so far, right? So that should be the main goal. So you realize now then that is the critical factor, which then leads you to one of the main observations, which I don't want to spoil, but you'll kind of understand that it is, in a sense, more critical to look at the directors of the movies rather than the lengths. So the first step in your algo, in some sense, will be to do with directors. Okay. So think of what you would do with them. And then you look at the lengths and do something more along those lines. So this is not an easy problem. The problem one, I think, is a fairly simple problem if you think about it for a bit. This is possibly the hardest problem in all the assignments so far. But I think it's a very nice problem. So I would just say, don't get frustrated if you're not able to get it for some time, even if you've got in the previous problems. Spend some time. I think it's a fairly satisfying problem to solve at the end with the full proof. So I think the proof is also a fairly educational proof to learn. So yeah, so I would rather not spoil a lot more. We'll definitely take it up when we discuss this entire problem in detail.
Thanks so much, Arjun. I think Rahul had an explicit question about the second problem in week 3. I don't know if he's still watching. Maybe we can just give it like 30 seconds to see if any follow-up questions crop up. But if not, then I'll just sneak in a couple of quick announcements while we are waiting. So the first is that we now have a community blog, which should have a proper URL very soon. But there is a desk setup that has been shared on Discord. So if you like writing things up, then please do share your posts with us. These could be editorials, this could be experiences, this could be a fun fact that you learned that could be useful. This could be notes from the lectures. I mean, we're pretty flexible about what we want to put up there, as long as it's generally related to the theme of competitive programming at a beginner level. I think it would be valid. So please do share anything that comes to your mind. And for now, you can just do that by sending me a direct message, and I'll give you a place where you can go and write up your post. I think we already have one or two entries sort of in the queue. So I'd really encourage you to please submit your write-ups as we go along. I think that'd be really helpful. The other thing is, I think we now are past the deadlines for the assignments for weeks 1 and 2. So from the portal, you should be able to download the explanations for the assignments that were based on multiple choice questions and short answer questions. For the programming assignments, Arjun, is there a place that they can find the code yet, or is that something that we will put up in due course?
I've been assuming that the community generated repository was taking care of it, no?
Right. So the community generated repository takes care of the code for the problems that we discuss in the lectures. But then I think as the weekly assignments go, I think.
Okay. I had assumed that was also part of that.
Sure. Yeah. So we'll probably add the testers code, I guess, to I suppose. I don't know if that is exposed automatically in the portal. So I think I may have to borrow it from you manually and add it to the repository. So we will do that. So I guess, in some time you should have access to the solutions to the programming assignments as well. But these will be pretty much the programs. So I think if anyone's interested in explaining these answers in like the style of an editorial, again, that would be we're happy to crowdsource this. If anybody is able to put something like this together, then please do share it with us. Hopefully in future live streams, we will have opportunities to actually also discuss these solutions. I think today we are over the hour, and probably those of you who are still watching want to probably get to dinner or something. So maybe this is a good place to wind this down a little bit. But we will, I think, in the live stream that we have next week, we'll be happy to discuss hints for week 4 and solutions for weeks 1 and 2. Would that make sense, Arjun?
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so I don't see any more comments or questions, so I think we are good. I'm just going to the spreadsheet from the Google form once again. So I will say that most of the questions that are relating to how to prepare or whether competitive programming is important for companies or how to get started, a lot of this has been addressed in the first live stream and also the very first lecture in the course. So please do take a look at that if those questions are still on your mind. We sort of have a frequently asked questions page on the course website as well, so you could look that up too. It has some information about recommended text editors for your code and what languages to get started with. So a lot of that, I think we do see some questions submitted which are in that spirit. So instead of taking them on once again here, we'll just refer you to the places that have been addressed already. And again, if you are still watching this and you're not yet on Discord, then please join the community. The information is in the portal so that we can continue the conversation there. In the meantime, thanks a lot for joining, and we'll see you back next week, I think. Yeah.
Thank you.